name's Carolyn, and I'm an alcoholic, an addict. That's not how I got sober this time. I've been sharing myself, my RV life, and my story here on YouTube for almost 6 years. And along the way, I've gotten many emails and comments from viewers, maybe you, who have asked me how I got sober. And so today I'm going to tell you how I got sober. I'm going to share my sobriety journey with you because it was a lifelong journey. And I think I would be doing a disservice to you if I just kind of started at the end. And I'm going to share this story with you today in the hopes that it's going to help somebody. Hey, before we get started, please subscribe to my channel. And even if you think you are subscribed, do me a favor and double check. People are always getting unsubscribed. So thanks for subscribing, and let's get started. My sobriety journey began when I was about 19, and I started seeing a therapist, and she suggested that I might have an alcohol problem. I was probably, I don't know, a binge drinker, whatever, back then. And she suggested that I might need rehab. So I went into a 30-day rehab program. And then straight from there, I went to a halfway house. I ended up getting kicked out of the halfway house because I couldn't stay clean and sober. And then from there, I ended up in a 12-month residential treatment program called Hospitality House in Albany, New York. In fact, I just drove by there recently. I was like, let's take a trip down memory lane. So it was a 12-month long residential treatment program. They said it was kind of based on Army boot camp, very, very strict, very regimented, very routine, and it was based on the 12 steps. I worked the steps. I spent a year in the residential treatment program. I ended up getting kicked out right before I was about ready to graduate. Yeah, long story there. And I ended up kind of homeless in Albany. I didn't have anywhere to go. And so I ended up staying with a friend. We ended up getting together, and I moved to California with him. So he had also been in Hospitality House, and he had also been kicked out about a month earlier for something completely different. So 2 Hospitality House dropouts. We decided to move to San Francisco. And we moved to San Francisco. We were both sober. We were both in the program. We settled down. We got an apartment and made friends in the program, and we're going to meetings and working the steps and getting sponsors and the whole 9 yards. I ended up breaking up with him. He was not a very good person. I ended up breaking up with him about 9 months after we moved to San Francisco. He backpacked around Europe or something, didn't stay sober very long, actually. And I stayed sober for a total of 7 years. I stayed sober for probably like another 5 years after we broke up. What do you see, Sadie? So I stayed sober for about 7 years. Went to community college. I worked the program for a long time, went to community college, ended up transferring to Berkeley, and my boyfriend came back. My first year at Berkeley, he resurfaced. We hooked up. He was drinking, and I was kind of starting to slide a little bit in my sobriety. I was still sober, but I had stopped working the program a long time before. I'd stopped going to meetings. I was hanging out with my new friends, were drinkers. I was going to bars and drinking soda. So I was on a slippery slope already. And what happened is, 26 or 25, 26, 27, is I stopped knowing why I was sober. I didn't know why I was sober anymore. The reason I got sober in the beginning was because my therapist told me I should. I never really believed I had a problem. I was only 19. I didn't lose a house. I didn't lose a job. I didn't, all the ifs, they call them the ifs, all the things that happened to the old timers hadn't happened to me. And of course, they always said, yet. They will happen to you. But the bottom line is they hadn't happened. I felt like a lightweight. And in fact, back in the day, the old timers would be like, what are these young kids doing here? Did they burn their toast? Nothing like making us feel welcome. And I honestly just didn't know a lot of the times what I was doing there. I'm like, I'm not like these people. I was in a year-long residential program. I was one of a handful. I think there were, 40, 50 people in the house. Only like 3 women. I was one of like 3 women and one of maybe 5 or 10 that wasn't court mandated. I was one of very few who was there voluntarily and not just to stay out of jail. So kind of hardcore. It was a little hardcore, but I met some amazing, wonderful people, and it was a good experience for me. But the whole time I'm like, wow, I'm not nearly as bad as these people. What am I doing here? But at the same time that I was working on my sobriety, I was also kind of working on some of my other issues as well, some of my other demons, you know, through sponsors and definitely through rehab. But after a while, after 7 years sober, I didn't know anymore why I was sober. I'm like, I wasn't like those people. I'm only 25. I'm doing fine. And so when my ex-boyfriend came back into my life and he was drinking, and he was a couple years younger than me, I was like, see, he's doing fine. You know, maybe all those things they told me would happen won't really happen. And we took a spring break trip to Baja, and in San Felipe, he's sitting there, I'm drinking a soda, and he's drinking a margarita. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. He went to the bathroom and I downed his margarita, so fell off the wagon. We continued on to a bottle of mezcal. I ate the worm, and we had a wild weekend. Yeah, and so I fell off the wagon, I think for 13 years. I think I was drinking for 13 years. So I fell off the wagon. He and I didn't last, and by my senior year at Berkeley, I discovered meth. So I started doing methamphetamines, and that took a hold of me more than I thought it would, even though I had done cocaine before and I was doing speed in high school, you know, like Black Beauties and things like that in high school. I don't know why. I was always a huge pothead in high school too, huge pothead in high school. But I never thought uppers were my thing. I did them, but I never thought they were my thing. So I ended up with a 2 or 3 year meth habit, addiction. That was an addiction. And in that time, you know, I met my husband. We were both partying tons together. We moved in together, partying like crazy. I managed by the skin of my teeth to graduate Berkeley, literally by the skin of my teeth, and moved in with him. And I eventually quit meth on my own because of circumstances. I was given an ultimatum, basically. And I quit, but we kept on drinking, and we drank, you know, bought a house, and I was still drinking. My career was going, but I was drinking. The last few years of my drinking, we had the house, we remodeled the house, my career was going well. I just gotten a promotion. Things were going really well, but my drinking continued to get worse and worse and worse. My husband became a truck driver. He was home less and less, and I was getting more and more out of control, and I was putting myself in very dangerous situations, and I was just like, this isn't who I want to be. I don't know. Somewhere in all that mess that I was just like, this isn't who I want to be. This isn't what I want. That Pink song, Sober, came out. This isn't how I want my story to end, or something like that. And I was like, yeah, this isn't who I want to be. And to help me along in that, my mother came to visit, and my mother is now sober, but at the time she wasn't, and she's 20 years older than me. And I saw her literally in a restaurant, face down in her plate, pretty drastic later alcoholic things happening there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 20 years younger than her, and I'm almost there. What am I going to be like when I'm her age? I knew I would have been 5 times worse. That really, really hit home for me too. I was like, okay, do I want to be dead by the time I'm 60? Cirrhosis? What's going to happen to me if I survive from all the dangerous things I was doing? And that was one of the seeds that helped me start thinking that I wanted to get sober. Another was that I did a lifelong dream, which was I went to Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I became a big sister to a 5-year-old. And she was 5. She was just a little bitty thing. And one of the rules was I can't drink when I'm with her. And I wasn't drinking when I was with her, but I was hungover. Sometimes I was so hungover, and I probably reeked of it. And she had issues in her family, and I was like, is this really who I want to be with her? I want to be present. I don't want to be just another sloppy, absent drunk in her life. So doing that, getting involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters, was another big motivator for me to get sober. So I started thinking I wanted to get sober. I'm like, this isn't, I'm failing at work. I was called out on my drinking one time at work. I was called out by the VP, my other boss. What's going on with you? Something's going on with you. He didn't call out the drinking specifically, but I think he knew. And this was right after I got the promotion. And so things were kind of starting to crumble around me. I think that's what it was. Things were really kind of starting to fall down around me. And I was like, I got to change. This isn't how I want I think at the point where my life can go to all the ifs. I can play out and I can do all the ifs. I heard, if you drink again, this will happen. I can go down that path, or I can halt it right here and go in a different direction. And I decided I wanted to try to get sober again. So I started going to meetings and just hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. And not for the reasons that you might think. And a little disclaimer here. AA is absolutely not for me. It works for a lot of people. And I know a lot of those people think it's the only solution. And I'm here to say it's not the only solution. Does it work for millions of people? Yes. Does it not work for millions of people? Yes. And so I had to start looking for other ways to get sober because I wasn't going to stay sober in AA. One of the problems I had with AA is the higher power thing. I just had a problem with that. I always struggled with that. And I got a sponsor when I was trying to get sober when I was married. I got a sponsor and I just said, you know, I'm really struggling with this God higher power thing. And like they always say in AA, your higher power can be your dog. It can be a chair. It can be the moon. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but that's not working for me. And so I told my sponsor, I was like, you know what? I'm just really struggling with the higher power thing and I don't know how to get over it. And she said, why don't you go home and pray on it? And that was the last AA meeting I ever went to. And because she wasn't able to hear me, you know, that there's a certain way to do AA. They say take what you like and leave the rest, but I couldn't get over that hurdle. One of the other things that I struggled with about AA, and again, I don't want to offend anybody. I know it works for millions of people around the world. These are just my opinions. These are just my beliefs. This is why I did not go the route of AA this time around to get sober. One of the things that really rubbed me the wrong way the second time around was the self-deprecation. And, oh, I'm just nothing but a drunk. Oh, what do I know? I'm just a drunk. Oh, you know what? I can't do anything. I have to leave it all to a higher power. I'm just a drunk. And I heard that over and over and over again in every room I went to. My whole past, my abusive upbringing, made me rooted in shame. That I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, just rooted in shame and self-doubt. And I'm sitting in those rooms trying to drum up the courage and the strength to drastically change my entire life because we drank together. One of us didn't drink more than the other. So this was going to be a major change in my life. And here I am trying to make this major change in my life. And I have to be self-deprecating. Oh, what do I know? Oh, I'm worthy. Oh, I'm nothing but a drunk. That didn't sit well with me. It just didn't. I'd been in and out of therapy all my life, and I knew enough to know that that wasn't good for me. That was not a good mental, emotional place for me to be. Here I am trying to get better. Do I really want to be self-deprecating? That really rubbed me the wrong way. Oh, I'm just a drunk, people say. And I'm like, no, you're not just a drunk. You're a lot of things. You're kind, you're smart, you're courageous, you know, you're powerful. But they want to give all their power away and be self-deprecating. Again, this is just my opinion. But that is one of the main reasons I couldn't do AA the second time around. So I started doing some research, how to get sober without AA. And there's something called harm reduction. I know someone who did years and years of harm reduction and it didn't do any good. She continued to drink like a fish. So harm reduction, I researched it. I was like, well, is this something that maybe I can do? And I researched it, and look it up if you're curious. Basically, it says you can continue to do what you're doing, but you can reduce the harm of it. I don't know. No. I knew enough to know that I probably have to go cold turkey. Because I tried everything. I'm just going to drink on the weekends. Yeah, that lasted until Monday. That lasted until like 7 o'clock on Monday evening when I got home from work. I'm just going to drink wine. Yeah, okay. I can drink a lot of wine, and that didn't last long either. Or I'm just going to drink beer. I won't drink vodka anymore. And that lasted a week. Or, I was drinking 2 cases of beer a week. Or, you know what? I'll just drink when we go out on special occasions. That didn't work. Anybody who's ever had struggle with alcoholism, you do. I'm just going to have 1 beer a day. No, that didn't work. I'm just going to have 1 glass of wine and 1 beer. And then I have 1 glass of wine and 1 beer. And I'm like, why not just break out the vodka? So I tried everything and nothing worked. So I knew that cold turkey was probably going to be the way to go. So I Googled how to quit drinking without AA, and I found a book called How to Quit Drinking Without AA. I still have it around here somewhere. So this book really changed everything for me. It changed how I view drinking. It changed how I view sobriety, how I viewed alcoholism, how I viewed my sobriety and my drinking. It's kind of like a self-help book, and I don't believe in self-help books. I'm not a big fan of self-help books, but it kind of walks you through. It's a completely different way of looking at sobriety than I ever heard in AA. It's a holistic approach to sobriety. It takes you through these exercises to help you explore your drinking. And I'm going to tell you 2 of my biggest aha moments that I got from the book. The first aha moment I got from the book is that one of the exercises is list all the reasons you drink, or it might have been put it in a spreadsheet, I don't know, but list all the reasons you drink. And so you list why do I drink? Or all the reasons you started drinking. I can't remember what it was. Because it helps me relax. It helps me be more sociable. It helps take away my shyness so that I can, in the beginning, when I was a teenager and I started drinking, I was painfully shy. I was painfully self-conscious. I was painfully dorky, and I started drinking because it loosened me up. It allowed me to be around people and to think I was funny and clever and smart. And so I wrote all these things down, and then it said, okay, now look at that list. And why do you drink today? This isn't what it is at all, but basically it forces you to look at the reasons you think you drink versus the reality. So I think I drink because I want to be more social. The reality is I can't leave my house. Once I start drinking, I can't leave my house because I don't know what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do. Am I going to kill somebody? Am I going to end up in jail or on the street? I don't know where I'm going to end up because I black out. So it helps you, like I said, once I was like, it was like, aha, like this aha moment. Holy cow. All these years I thought I had been drinking because it'll give me courage, it'll give me this, it'll give me that, it'll give me that. But when you look at it, you realize that what it has done, it has taken all of that away from me. The other thing, that's right, this just came to me. The other exercise is the time. How much time in your life you devote to drinking. Drinking and getting drunk, being hungover, being not productive at all because you're so hungover. So there are some really good exercises in this book that are just eye-opening. A very practical, very practical approach. Very different from the one I experienced when I was in AA. And none of the self-deprecation. The other thing, the other aha moment, like I said, this book takes a holistic view. So it even gives you diet advice and like things, diet, like, I don't remember. I think it even gives you like things that you should eat and things that you should avoid while you're trying to get sober. And one of the biggest aha moments for me in that was that your body metabolizes alcohol the same way it metabolizes, do you know? Sugar. Your body metabolizes alcohol the exact same way it metabolizes sugar. Anybody who's ever been in an AA room, what's there? On the table with the coffee. Sugar, sugar, sugar. Cookies. Coffee and cookies. Donuts. Every AA room, they encourage you. As a replacement for alcohol, they encourage you to eat sugar. What happens, since your body metabolizes both of those the same, what happens is if you keep eating sugar, you continue to crave alcohol. This helped me realize that my first addiction was sugar. My first addiction was sugar. I was stealing candy from my cousin's Easter baskets when I was 6. It was a huge aha moment for me. So sugar, binge eating disorder, I've had eating disorders all my life, and then it was alcohol, and then after a while, through my sobriety, I picked up binge eating again, and I had to work through that. But what I did is the first year, 6 months, 7 months, I don't remember what it was, but the first months that I was trying to get sober, I completely gave up sugar. All sugar. This is when I started reading labels and discovering that there's sugar in everything, and I completely gave up sugar the first few months of getting sober. So I think within a few days of getting that book and reading the first few pages or chapter, I had my last drink. So I had my last drink 14 years ago almost, December 28th. I had my last drink, and that book got me started. Okay, so the book got me started, but it took a little bit more than that to keep me sober. For one thing, I hadn't completely given up pills. I was doing Vicodin every once in a while just to get me through the transition of drinking. I had a bottle of Vicodin in the medicine cabinet, and it helped me to feel less deprived. So the first week or whatever that I quit drinking, I'd come home, I'd pour myself a glass just like I did when I was drinking, a cocktail glass with ice and Pellegrino or tonic or whatever, so that I could not cut everything out all at once. You know, drinking is, any addiction is as much the habit and the routine as it is the chemical. For you smokers, you know, it's like, what do you do with your hands? Or what do I do on a break when I'm used to going outside and having a cigarette? Or anybody who's ever done powder, you know, it's like any powder drugs. It's about the razor blade and the chopping and the straw. It's about the routine as much as it is sometimes, or at least that's a big part of it, as it is the chemical. So I had to transition. I couldn't just completely go cold turkey, throw away the wine glasses, throw away the rocks glasses, and forget that was even ever a part of your life. I made a mocktail so that every day when I came home, instead of going to the refrigerator and making a vodka on the rocks, I'd make a sparkling water on the rocks. And I would take a Vicodin here and there to kind of help that transition, to make me feel like I wasn't deprived. I always felt that alcohol was my drug of choice. Any other drug I've ever done, I've been able to stop pretty easily when it got to a point that I needed to stop. Alcohol has always been the hardest for me. So my rationale was, I don't have a problem with Vicodin, so you know, I'm just going to help through the transition. And it did help through the transition. Later it got bad, but it did help through the transition. When my husband and I would go on vacation, he was still drinking. He took his big half-gallon bottle of tequila, and I took my sparkling water, but I saved a couple Vicodins so that I could not feel left out, so that I could still feel like a part of, if that makes any sense. I don't recommend it. This is what I did. So, you know, while I got sober 14 years ago, I still was doing recreational drugs here and there. So, and I continued, you know, until the prescription was gone. And then I didn't do anything for a while. But then I had a friend who had extra Vicodins. And so I would take Vicodin recreationally for a little while. And probably about 6 months or a year, I started introducing sugar back into my diet, and then the binge eating started, and I had to work through that. But the second biggest thing, besides the book, the second biggest thing I did to get sober and stay sober was to find a good therapist. I highly a sponsor is absolutely not a replacement for a qualified, licensed therapist, not even close. The 12 steps are not a replacement for a good therapist, not even close. My therapist, and I've had many, many, many therapists throughout my life, I just lucked out with this last therapist that I found, and I've been with her ever since. Still, we do, every other week we do phone calls. And she helped me find the reasons I drink. She does not buy into the you drink because you're an alcoholic, you drink because you're just a stupid drunk who doesn't know anything better. She does not buy into that at all. She's Jungian. She believes in getting to the root of everything. And that's what we've done over the years that we've been working together. So I don't know that I would still be sober today with AA or without AA if it wasn't for my therapist. I had to work through my stuff. I had to get to the core of the onion. So I continued to use pills, mostly recreationally, for a few years, really not very often at all. But then I went to Europe. I spent 6 weeks in Europe. I think 5 weeks. I don't know. I went to Europe, did 6 or 7 countries, came back, and something happened. The earth shifted below me and opened up a crevice, exposing my past to me in a way I had never seen it before. I don't know what happened. I'd been in therapy for a few years. I was sober for a few years. I went to Europe and a bucket list, traveled Europe by myself, and it just opened me up. I guess I was ready to see. I was ready to see something that I had denied, a core truth that I had denied my whole life. And thank God I had my therapist, because that sent me to my knees. It punched me in the gut and just, I've never experienced anything like that. I mean, I cried forever. I was a mess for months. And that took me down a path of drug use again. It started with a lot of cocaine, a lot of cocaine, a little bit of meth. I was like, cocaine's not a problem. Meth was my problem. Coke's not my problem. So I did a lot of cocaine, a little bit of meth. I started on the pills again whenever I could. Oxycontin, a little bit of Oxycontin, Vicodin. And this is all while I'm working through this new awareness. This new awakening. That's not the word I'm looking for. This new revelation that I had. All of a sudden, everything I thought I was, everything I thought I wasn't, everything I thought that, oh, that never happened to me. It was only this bad. But everything, my whole world just shattered. But I needed that. I got to the core of the onion, and it busted me to my knees, and I spiraled and spiraled. I spiraled. It was dark and ugly, a lot of drugs, a lot of stuff. It was ugly. And I was seeing my therapist like twice a week during that time because she was really worried about me, but I needed to work through it. And she has always told me that the reason I drank was because it was the only way I could cope with what happened to me. And she said, if you didn't drink, who knows? You could have been homicidal, suicidal. Who knows? You could have had a psychic break. What are those called? You could have ended up institutionalized. You drank because you needed it to cope. Because the shit you've been through is so awful and so ugly. You had to cope somehow. And your drinking is how you coped. And once I got to the core of the onion, and I spiraled and spiraled and spiraled as we worked through that together, I finally came out the other side, and I have been clean and sober ever since. The truth Wow. The truth will set you free. It fucking sucks in between. That was hard. That was really hard. I don't know if any of you have ever experienced denial before, but that level of denial that I carried with me all my life, that wall that my psyche put up to protect me, and when it finally came down, it almost crushed me. You know, and I went back to what I knew to cope. Drugs. Didn't drink. I stayed sober. I didn't drink. Oh, the final straw on that was the guy that I was buying pills from, came up one day and he's like, you know, I don't have any oxy today, but I've got liquid morphine. So I started doing liquid morphine. I think I bought it from him twice. By the second round that I bought from him and I learned how to do it, I was Googling how to shoot it without putting it in my veins. Skin pricking, I think they call it. That scared me. You know, and that scared me. I liked it so much. I wanted to like it more. And that was the wake-up call for me. I was at another crossroads again. Is this really who I want to be? Do I want to be a heroin addict? Because that's what's next. And I always knew if I ever came across heroin, I would have been a goner. And so that scared me. Scared me straight. That was pretty much the end for me. That was the end for me. That was my bottom, if you want to put it in those terms. But so I don't know, 4 years, maybe 3 or 4 years after I got sober, I had my last pill. And so I've been clean and sober ever since. That is the story of how I got clean and sober. I really think it's my therapist. I think that if I never got to the root of my demons, if I never got to the truth, I would still need to have that crutch. I would still need the alcohol to help me not see it, I think, right? Because once I quit drinking, all of a sudden I saw it. So the alcohol worked for me. She says it worked for me the way, you know, I needed it to work for me. It protected me. In a way, I guess it protected me until I was ready to see the truth. And when I was ready to see the truth with a good therapist, I got sober and I saw the truth. And I was in a place where I was protected, where I was strong enough, where I had help, someone I trusted, who was my therapist, to help me help walk me through it, even though I was spiraling in drugs again. So that's the big story of my sober journey. And I'm happy to be sober. I think about like the taste of it. Every once in a while, I'll take a sip of alcohol just because I like the taste. I don't want to get drunk. I don't want to alter my mood. I don't want to alter anything. I just don't want to drink. I don't want to use drugs. I don't want to use anymore. Why would I want to alter my consciousness when I can have such pure joy and elation by going out and playing with Sadie, or experience such peace and tranquility as going and sitting in the forest? I just don't need to alter my consciousness anymore. I just don't need to. I don't have anything to run from. I don't have anything to hide from. All the truth has been bared. I know it. And I can't run from it anymore. I hope you found this helpful in some way. I'll put a link to the book in the video description below if you want to check it out. You know, it might be a starting point for you, but I highly recommend. I think every single one of us who drinks or even doesn't drink, we all have demons. We all have things that we wish we hadn't experienced that we do need to work through. I highly recommend finding a therapist. She has saved my life, and it took a long time to find the right one. So if you get into a session and it doesn't feel right, you know, talk to your therapist about it. You know, this isn't feeling right. Maybe it's not the right fit. Just keep working until you find the right one. And I highly recommend a Jungian. Carl Jung is, based on that. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. I appreciate you. And I hope you found this helpful or inspirational in some way. Until next time, be happy, be free, and be kind. See you soon.